we're going to have to rebuild within this wild, wild west of information flow some sort of curating function.
It's time for the AxisOfEasy podcast, the weekly technology digest that keeps you ahead of the curve.
We've got to maybe do something with the internet.
Brought to you by EasyDNS.com.
Somebody will say, oh, freedom of speech, freedom of speech. These are foolish people.
Canada to deploy voluntary nationwide contact tracing app. Surveillance-capitalism firm Palantir has filed to go public. Gigantic telecom outage last week was not a DDoS from China. And Google demonetizes the Federalist and Zerohedge. All this and more on Axis of Easy number 151. Hey everybody, Mark Jeftovic here with another edition of Axis of Easy. I'm actually recording this a day earlier on the 22nd of June. Usually I do this on the Tuesday, but I'm going to try and get it in on Monday night. And let's get down to the quotes. Last week's quote was, "Our minds tell us and history confirms that the great threat to freedom is the concentration of power." That was Milton Friedman, and the winner was Janet Matthews. This week's quote is, "One of the greatest delusions in the world is the hope that the evils of this world are to be cured by legislation." So remember the rules, no searching this up online, and the first person to post the correct source of the quote to the episode show notes page gets their next web hosting or domain renewal on us. Keep in mind, the show notes for this week are at AxisOfEasy.com/151, and you have to scroll down to the bottom of the post where the comment section is. Some people have been having a hard time finding that, so just scroll down at the bottom. You'll see an area to post comments to the blog post, and that's where you put in your quote contest answer. Okay, so Canada to deploy voluntary nationwide contact tracing app. Last week, the Canadian federal government announced it would be releasing a coronavirus contact tracing app nationwide. Downloading it would be voluntary, and it would take measures to protect user privacy. The app development was spearheaded by the Canadian Digital Service in conjunction with the Ontario Digital Service and volunteer developers from Shopify. A security review is going to be undertaken by BlackBerry. So back in Axis of Easy number 145, we reported that the federal and provincial privacy commissioners across Canada issued a joint statement outlining a set of guidelines for governments to follow in order to protect user privacy in contact tracing apps. And this doesn't specifically say, so I'm interested in knowing if this app is going to follow those guidelines. I've got an inquiry into the Canadian Digital Service asking them if this is the case. I haven't heard back yet, so when I do hear back, I'll report here. Meanwhile, over in Norway, they've suspended their contact tracing app initiative and deleted all the collected data after their privacy watchdog raised some concerns. And in Germany, the uptake of the app is facing headwinds as the number of Germans who say they will install it is falling, which is down to 42%, while the number who say they won't install it is rising, now up to 46%. And remember, back in Axis of Easy 142, we reported on Australia's contact tracing app, how they're going to make that voluntary so long as at least 40% of the population volunteers to install it. And if that doesn't happen, it's going to become mandatory. And this is probably a good place to refresh your memory on Jesse Hirsch's posts from April, the impending disaster of app-based contact tracing. As far as I'm concerned, as far as the Canadian app goes, if it follows the Privacy Commissioner guidelines and installation is truly voluntary, I'm okay with installing it personally. I will do that when I hear back from them. Like I said, I'll let you know. Oh, I almost forgot. Apple's COVID-19 tracing hooks, which we reported on back in Axis of Easy 141, look to already be deployed in iOS 13.5.1. Just open up your settings on your iPhone, go into privacy, health, and there it is, your COVID-19 exposure logging setting. It's probably defaulted to off since there are no apps to plug in there yet, but the sign of things to come. Surveillance-capitalism firm Palantir files to go public. We've covered Palantir a couple of times. They're the somewhat secretive big data surveillance capitalism shop founded by Peter Thiel, who seems to possess boatloads of data points on nearly everybody with a digital footprint. And at the end of the day, surveillance is a business, and business is good. So according to Bloomberg, Palantir is getting ready to file an S1. Sorry, they haven't filed it yet. As per the headline, they're expected to file it soon, and that would be ahead of a September IPO. So I've got my RSS reader queued up, ready to pull that one down when it comes out on the SEC website. Should make for some interesting reading. Giant telecom outage was not, repeat, not a DDoS attack from China. So last week on June 15th, a bunch of telecoms went down. It started with T-Mobile and then seemed to spread over into Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint. Rumors flew a so-called anonymous Twitter account tweeting that, quote, the U.S. is currently under a major DDoS attack, end quote. U.S. Congressman Ted Lieu latched on to that and ran with it, but it turns out that isn't really what happened. And it was really a maintenance window gone wrong on the T-Mobile network. They did some network upgrades. They didn't go so well, and it set off a string of cascading failures. And all of us in IT know what that's like, and it sucks when it happens. Google demonetizes the Federalist and Zerohedge. So less than a week after we reported that Twitter had reinstated the Zerohedge account, saying that it made a mistake in suspending it, Google stepped up to the plate and demonetized them from the AdSense ad network. And they also issued a warning to the Federalist. Google's action is concerned largely with the comment sections on both sites. So years ago, Zerohedge made the decision very early in their existence to provide a completely unmoderated and wide open comment section, and that seems to have come back and shot them in the foot. So now they're going to be undertaking an initiative to clean that up, which means they're going to have to do some kind of comment moderation. My personal theory is that most of the worst actors on those comment sections are the work of a handful of actors employing numerous sock puppet accounts. That's just the sense I got from looking at it over the years. Google is trying to get rid of the URL again. As of Chrome 85, Google will be rolling out a change to the browser's location bar to only display the domain name portion of the URL. Company says it's part of an effort to help users avoid phishing sites. And I mean, personally, I don't see it. I have an easier time figuring out if a link is fishy or not by seeing the entire URL instead of just the domain. It could be a typo squat. It could be a homoglyph. The more information, the better for me. But there will be an opt-out feature once this deploys. You right-click on the Chrome address bar. There will be an always show full URLs option that you can turn on. Large-scale Twitter and Facebook influence campaign linked to China. A report published by the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, quote, analyzes a persistent large-scale influence campaign linked to Chinese state actors on Twitter and Facebook, end quote. The efforts are targeted at Chinese-speaking nationals outside of China, where Twitter is blocked, in order to shape opinions on such matters as Hong Kong, coronavirus, and Taiwan. The research looked at over 23,000 Twitter accounts and over 300,000 tweets between January 2018 and April 2020, surmising that they were inauthentic and that they operated between normal office hours on Beijing time and a lot of those accounts had 0 followers. So Twitter deactivated the accounts, and the research has detected even more of them after cross-referencing with similar Facebook accounts. Chinese authorities freeze thousands of bank accounts of Bitcoin traders. So also in China, it's been reported via Bitcoin.com that the People's Bank of China, PBOC, has frozen somewhere north of 4,000 bank accounts of the over-the-counter Bitcoin traders there in a crackdown on illegal activities, including money laundering, telecom fraud, gambling, and crypto scams. A lot of them apparently use the stablecoin Tether in conjunction with Bitcoin, and the police have been getting up to speed on how to trace funds and analyze blockchain transactions. And it says that any of the accounts that are frozen and found not to be engaging in illicit activities will be released after the investigation concludes. In China, multiple court cases have concluded that cryptocurrencies are legal. One case finding that Bitcoin is an asset protected by law. Another one that Ethereum is legal property with economic value. And in May, a civil ruling passed protecting the inheritance rights for crypto assets. IRS used commercial database of U.S. cell phones to track suspected criminals. Looks like throughout 2017 and 2018, the U.S. Internal Revenue Service's Criminal Investigation Unit purchased a commercial database with millions of anonymized cell phone location data records and used it to try to track criminal suspects. The database was purchased from a Virginia company called Ventel Inc., which purchases cell phone location data from marketing companies and then resells it to governments. The IRS discontinued use of the database after locating exactly 0 suspects using the data. Krebs says, turn on 2FA before a hacker does it for you. Security researcher Brian Krebs reminds us all to turn on multi-factor authentication wherever we can, especially on our key accounts. The trend with cyber criminals is that when they do successfully hack into somebody's account where it isn't enabled, they turn it on themselves. That makes it even harder for the true account holder to regain control. If you haven't already done this on your EasyDNS account, you go to the control panel, cp.easydns.com. You log into your account, you go to the account security settings, and you turn on two-factor authentication there. University board chair resigns over liked tweets. The chairman of the University of British Columbia's Board of Governors has resigned after it was revealed that he liked numerous tweets critical of Black Lives Matters and Antifa on Twitter. Michael Korenberg admitted he didn't realize that his liked tweets were publicly visible, and he also said that he uses the like function to just bookmark tweets to look at later. I do exactly the same thing myself for tweets I'm going to reference or might blog about later. Nonetheless, he has resigned his post and issued an apology. But this incident has me thinking more about cancel culture and how it's gotten so bad now that the risk-reward for being on Twitter is really heavily weighted towards just not doing it anymore. It really, there's no payoff to it. It's just becoming less and less. Anyhow, transhumanism will be the new religion of the coming technocracy. I was hesitant about adding this item. It's an essay in the Wall Street Journal about the prospect of the coronavirus pandemic kickstarting a global transhumanism initiative to abolish death via technology. The promise of a utopia that would usher in weighed against the dystopian scenario of it coming in unevenly. What that means is the rich get to live forever, the poor have to take their chances in the afterlife. The Wall Street Journal kind of ruminates on the pros and cons of that happening. So two reasons I was hesitant to mention it in this week's edition. One, it's on the Wall Street Journal, so it's behind a paywall. And two, it's such a huge topic that it's hard to just fit it into the newsletter. It's so huge, in fact, that my next book is actually about exactly this. I started working on my book called The Singularity Has Been Canceled last spring, but I put it on the back burner to write Unassailable. And now that that's out, I have been getting back to writing this one. I'm going to include it here. I summarized the Wall Street Journal essay on a standalone blog post. It's over on the AxisOfEasy.com in the show notes, which we'll link to from there. This week's Axis of Easy Salon number 9 with Jesse Hirsch and Charles Hugh Smith was called Algorithmic Guerrilla Warfare. as we head into a world where rule of law will soon be augmented, if not replaced, by algo overlords. What can ordinary people do to protect themselves and their privacy? So we talked about that and a lot more on the Axis of Easy Salon. We started a Reddit, so our Axis of Easy is there now. We also have a Telegram if you want to send me story ideas. If I get enough people sending me story ideas for the newsletter, I can actually delete my Twitter account. I think that's my near-term objective. And we also have a YouTube channel for the salons. We'll link to all of those in the show notes page, which this week will be at axisofeasy.com/151. And continue to stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy. We'll see you all next week.
Cause he's an entrepreneur. You gotta keep those women working, but you're looking good, I swear. That's Bangladesh. Rhymes rich, you're fresh. You're just a whore.